that all rolls up to what's called a dot plot. The dot plot basically says this is how the different governors are going to be. Is it governors or chair? I can't remember, but how they all vote. And essentially, and it kind of shows you where their head is, right, based on their particular region. Because what's in Kansas City is very different from San Francisco and very different from Philadelphia, and you guys kind of get the point. Very different from Dallas. So every person comes with their own perspective, which is, I think, a good thing. And so the chair. While they're still the chair, they also have to deal with the whole committee. So this is not something that, and of course we are supposed to be completely independent. The president is supposed to be completely independent of the Fed.
Now, the biggest thing, though, is that in the past, the Fed has done some kind of quantitative easing where they're buying those mortgage-backed securities. Now, I don't know if Warsh is going to do that, but Trump has already put Fannie and Freddie in the position to start doing that. Just the thought of him mentioning it had already lowered rates, right? So if they actually start buying mortgage-backed securities, obviously that helps, get rates down as well.
And let's talk about how we got here, right? Because, Fannie and Freddie got in trouble in 2008. So, Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, as you guys know, they're not nationalized, but the government bailed them, and then they fixed themselves, and they ended up getting quite a bit of money on their balance sheets, and so they were highly profitable. And Trump saw that cash. He's like, okay, 100 billion each. You're going to start buying these mortgage-backed securities. And what that did is it drove rates down. And by the way, let's take a look at this. There's a lot of people that are refinancing right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it helped.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you and I both did refinances. We just did a refinance on a big project in Flagstaff, a 267 unit project. You did a refinance on a property that you have a lot of equity in. You pulled some equity out, right?
Yeah, and I'm waiting. And I think a lot of people are also waiting on other properties. I have one that's at 6.9%. Doesn't make sense to refinance yet, but if rates can get into the mid fives, then it does make sense for me to refinance into a lower payment. And truthfully, doing that will probably make it cash flow.
Well, I refinanced at 5.5.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on your relationships and whatever it is, I'm telling you, you guys can get into the fives right now. And we're underwriting our multifamily deals in the fives right now for Fannie and Freddie debt going forward. So that is commercial, of course, but the reality is decent, right? Well, I mean, if you can't make a deal work at 5.5, then it doesn't work.
Well, and right, because those are more reasonable rates. And, these 6% rates right now, they've started to bring buyers back. Like the market has picked up since rates were higher, but they're not quite low enough. People are teetering, they're thinking about buying, they're considering it. Investors are considering investing. But if rates continue to go down, I mean, even half a point to a point, I think that brings a lot of people off of the bench.
I think there's a psychological barrier if it goes below 6.
Yeah.
Right? For a lot of people.
Yep.
Right. They're going to say, okay, it's within reach. So if you're in your low 5s or high 4s, it might be something you consider, right? Especially if you have a lot of equity. It's possible you don't because you like the low payment. And in Neil's case, she has a deal that's like under 3, right? So it has a long way to go. But there's a lot of people sitting in the 4s. And so if you're in your 5s at least, you're like, okay, I'm like a point and a half away, perhaps. But we have a long way to go. I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say that I think that the Fed's going to have to lower their rates by at least a point to a point and a quarter for people to really unleash. And what does that mean? That means 4 or 5 different Fed, or it could be one at half a point, but 4 or 5 different Fed meetings. And that's going to take most of this year. So, at the end of the year, we could be in the low 5s would be my guess. I would bet that you're going to have rates come down at almost a full point sometime this year.
Also, you have to remember this is going to help people that bought in 22, 23, 24. So these people that are sitting like me in a 6.9, 7.5% rate, being able to refinance out of that is going to save some investor deals. It's going to allow some people that are really stretched on, their monthly payment for their house to kind of be more comfortable. And it's also, like you said, it's going to make people, buyers right now, psychologically, they don't want to buy because rates are too high. So if rates come down and prices don't adjust, then they basically have to ask themselves, do I want to buy or do I not want to buy? And, there's really, unless you think housing prices are going to go down significantly, it kind of removes those barriers to entry for home buyers, is I guess what I'm saying. Because right now it's all about the rates. I'm waiting for rates to go down. I'm waiting for rates to go down. Okay, well, once they're down, then what are you going to do?
Well, right. So here's the thing. I'm always buying, as you guys probably know. Like I mean, do I want low rates? Of course. Do I want low prices? Of course. Do I want it to cash flow? Of course. Okay. But if I'm in the business, I finance stuff at 7.5%, right? So when I trade out a 7.5 for a 5.5, I've got 2 points. That's a lot. So my payment goes down by 2%. That's a lot. So I did it, of course, and guess what? If it happens again, if it keeps going to 4.5, I'll do it again. Mm-hmm. I just ratchet it down, just like just like a ratchet. Just ratchet, and you want to get this thing as low as you can, and make sure you fix. But so yes, I'm at 5.5 today, but in a year, if it goes to 4.5, or maybe even longer, maybe I wait. If it goes into 3s, I'll lock it again. And I'm not selling the real estate. I'm literally just doing a refinance and try to get my payment as low as possible. Because when my payment goes down, and my cash flow goes up, all things being equal, right? So that's the whole game here. So you want to make sure if you're cash flowing at 7.5 and you're happy with the deal, great. 5.5 makes it better. Same deal. You don't have to sell it. You just cash out refi. And if you don't cash out, that's fine too.